Hello, my name is Carlos Agreja, and I finally got the Hibernate working with um, Transaction Manager. So it eliminates some boilerplate code. You don't have to worry about beginning transactions and committing transactions, and you don't. Um, and currently, you don't have to manage the sessions either, so you don't have to open sessions, close sessions. All that's handled automatically. And I'll show what I have. So here's my project that I'm working on. It's an employee project, and right now what I wanted to get it to do is to well, I'll submit an employee, and it created the databases for me, so it's empty. So I submitted one, and I'm gonna insert the same one, and I got an error. So everything's working great. Took me a while to get this. A few issues that I had was I was getting lazy initialization errors from Hibernate, and that was most likely because I'm doing a many-to-many relationship. So it was what it was asked for me to do. It was an assignment to use Hibernate and use many-to-many, and pretty much all this, everything else is just pretty much what I decided to do. So, but yeah, that was a requirement. So I've been using the many-to-many, even though an employee and an address seems like a one-to-many maybe, or one-to-one really. But you can have different residents in the same place or whatever. So as you can see here, open session and view interceptor. I tried that as a bean, and it took me a while to get this working. I'm gonna see real quick. I'll show some code that I commented out. So as you can see how I had it working before, because I had trouble with the transactional manager. So I would create a session or get a session here from the repository, and then I can begin the transaction, and that would get rid of the errors that I was getting with like no synchronized transaction or something. So yeah, but I got it all working without this, so don't need this anymore. And the end transaction, I would end it over here. So yeah, I'll go over my configuration, what I have, and I left some things just to point out some things that I have. So I'll start with the configuration. I have this repository test configuration, which my root configuration, I import it here. So that's pretty much it there. And I import my repository, which is the repository test config. No, wait a minute. My employee repository. Sorry about that. So my Hibernate, just this Hibernate employee repository. That's what it I scan for. So alright, I'll start with the configuration, the database configuration. So I had this inject session. This was for this here. So this is one way you can do it. You can use this platform transaction manager, and it overrides. It's not a bean. It overrides an interface you can implement, which you can see I took out here. I forgot what it is that you implement actually. But rather than do that, as you can see, what it does is just return a new Hibernate Transaction Manager, and you can pass in session factory. So what I did was just create the bean for a Hibernate Transaction Manager, and I did it this way. I'm not sure if this actually helped out my application. I was having trouble with Hibernate closing the session, obviously, but I think it was due to the I needed fetch on eager because of the lazy initialization. I'll comment this out and just give it a test. So that's just, yeah, I was messing around looking for some settings. I found this setting allow, and it sounded like it would keep the session open or something that I needed. Sounded like it might work, so I gave it a try. I'll oh, it started up again. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. So okay, and then yeah, it's like recompiling. So this always happens. There we go. I don't know, Maven or something is yeah, it's just not ready. So this and submit, and everything's working fine, so that's good. Yeah, so I didn't need that. What it was probably just the initialization, lazy initialization, which I guess is default because I set it to eager, and then it seemed to fix the problem with the many-to-many relationships. So don't need this. Alright, so I'll go over what I have. Don't need this. Again, this was if you do override something, yeah, you can inject it here, and then that worked. So you can use the session factory because you're not creating the beans, so you can't like auto wire it that way, but you can inject it here, and that worked that way. So if you have to do that, so this is what I have. I should have a data source, session factory, bean, and I need a new mouse, so it keeps jumping like that, and the transaction manager. So so I get the data source. Now the session factory bean, I actually have the old one over here. This time I went with the local session factory bean, and I think that's what did I use before? What was I using? That's why I have this old one here open. So the local session factory builder, I was using this. You can see this looks deprecated, so yeah, but pretty much the same thing. This one was worked nice, but the one I'm using now, this should be for the Hibernate 4, and I think it's like the annotation one and the previous one, which has the same name, combined. So I think if you gotta actually select the 4, Hibernate 4 here. Up here is the difference. I think there's one for might be one for 3. So yeah, and then there's the annotation one as well. Yeah. So anyways, let's see what I got here. So yeah, this is for Hibernate 4. I was using the 5, but I went down to 4. I don't know, I'm just gonna give the 5 a little more time. The 4, because I was missing like a library that was like a 4, and then I had to switch it to 4. It was saying I had a class not found, but yeah, so I don't know, I'm gonna stick with the 4. Local session factory bean, so this is what I'm using. Like I said, this is up to, as far as I know, good for if you're using Hibernate 4, or yeah, Hibernate 4 pretty much, or they have the annotated. I believe if you're using 3, there might be 2 different ones. I don't know, but I'm using the 4, and so this is the one I'm using. Local session factory bean, and how it works is pretty much the same thing as like the builder. So you can set your data source there. I use the annotated classes. You can scan packages, but I'm wanted to specify just these 2 classes. I didn't want it to build all my entities, so I just wanted to use these 2. and properties, Hibernate properties, just create the properties for the Hibernate. So I have the dialect, well, this is a string for dialect, but then I put it here. So dialect, show SQL true. I have it on create, so it drops the all the entity tables if they exist, and then creates new ones for me every time. And I have this ID new generator mapping set to false, and that's pretty much my settings for the Hibernate. Then just add the as you can see, set Hibernate properties. So add those properties there, and after properties set, I call this method object get object, which returns a session factory. So you can really just call this session factory. And I should have refactored that. You can really just return this. No real need for this. You could just return this and put it here, but whatever. Alright, so that is the new session factory that I have. And then I had the transaction manager. I did go over the data source, right? Just the plain data source. Basic data source, this is the database connection pool from Derby, I think, or Apache Commons. Alright, so the Hibernate Transaction Manager, let's see. Okay, so really nothing to this. Really shouldn't even need this code, honestly. I'm just gonna I did that probably to try to get some settings, but gonna pass in session manager this way because should take it in the constructor. Okay, so that should work fine. I'll run that, and yeah, so that's pretty much all you need. Just make a bean for it and pass it your session factory, and should be all set. Delete that. Looks like I need to fix this. Oh wait. Control A. Fix the formatting. Alright. So I have it open here, and just make sure I didn't break anything. Okay, looks good. So that's the configuration. I'll go over some of the code if you're interested in that. So I have the Hibernate repository, and so I saw some people making a constructor and passing the session factory in there, and then and auto wiring it in there, and then setting that from here. So it didn't really make any sense for me to do it that way. I don't know if there's a reason for doing that. So I just have the session factory here, and I auto wire it like that. The session here, all this is to eliminate the boilerplate code, because obviously I would have this whole thing written wherever you see this session here. So I would have to write this every single time to get current session. So now I can just use this. That's all that is. This is get employee and save, and contains address is really nothing. It's just a convenient method for me. I might need it somewhere else in the application, so I decided to actually keep it here. Another thing I don't want to forget to mention is transactional. I had add transactional on the actual methods. So you would put it like right here above the um, transaction method, so that the transaction manager knows it's a transaction and it can begin a transaction. You know, basically, open a session. I believe it uses current session. I'm not sure exactly, but transactional is basically so it can open the, like the transaction, start the transaction, close the transaction, and so it does all that for you. So and that's why you want to specify a transactional. I actually put it on a class scope here, and it takes care of all of them rather than have to put it on every method. But yeah, that's the way I decided to go with that. So I have the get employee, and I call the session create a query. So this is HQL Hibernate query language from employee, and then it says where first name equals first name, and this is passed in, and last name equals last name, and that's passed in. So I have query set string first name, and I tell the query what this first name equals, and it's going to be this, and then I do the same thing here, which is going to be this, and then I cast the object that it returns. It either returns an object or returns null if it doesn't return anything, and I use the query unique result, and that worked out for what I needed to do, and it returns an employee, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, the query, and then it just returns this. So I have save, and for my needs I pass it an employee and an address, and like I said, I have ManyToMany, so it's strange like that, because when you have ManyToMany, you have to save them both, and if you just save one, then it will say something like you have one in transit or something like that before you try to close. I don't know, you run into problems. So yeah, with the ManyToMany relationship, this is how I have it. You pretty much want to save them both like that, and contains address is just a returns a boolean for me to know if the address exists, and as I showed you, when I enter the same address and I got that red error that said employee address exists when I enter that into the web page. So yeah, that's all I need this for, really, to know if the address already exists. Otherwise I can add the address, otherwise I'll put that error. So that's all that is for. There's no transaction here or anything, although the Hibernate does still is still being used to get this address, even though I got the employee, and then I did use Hibernate to get the employee, and I'll show that over here. So that's why I was running into the initial lazy init error. So alright, here's my add controller, and this is called when I click add to add the employee. So yeah, add controller, the query mapping, request mapping. So AutoWire, the repository, which I just showed you, and the employee repository, and over here what I do is return a model and a view. I take the request so that I can get the information from the post, I create the model here, and the view I set to home, which will go back to the same page. So get the post information, just use the request and get the first, last name, and the address. And then I was using salary, but that was just getting in the way of testing and stuff. It was just one extra thing I had to worry about, so I got rid of that. yeah, I was gonna use a salary to do a query to like return ascending order or something like that. But as you saw, the HQL, I use the HQL. You can easily do that as well. It's just for testing and trying to get the transaction manager to work. I just want to keep it real simple. I can add all this stuff in after, but when you're trying to test and you get like want to enter like 10 fields, as you can see how easy it was for me to test. Just go right down the line, just enter A and everything, and so yeah. Employee repository, get the employee. So I showed you that. Basically does that HQL query for first and last name, returns a unique employee. If employee is null, then we can add the employee. So let's see, new employee, create a new employee, and then employee get addresses, add the address, and then as you can see, address get employees, add employee. So I do that, and then basically that's how you're going to do with the save. So for the ManyToMany, so this is how the ManyToMany works. And then I showed you the save where it takes the employee and the address and it saves them both. So if the employee already exists, then I gotta check to make sure that the address doesn't exist, so that I can know if it's okay to add the address or send back an error here, and it tells them employee address already exists, and I just put a string and store that here, and then I use expression language on a JSP to output that. And as you can see, it's returned there. So that's really it. So what do I have here? I was just testing. So pretty much the same thing here. Just save it if it's a new address. So yeah, okay, that's all I want to show there, I guess. And yeah, the problem with the transient was the lazy in it. So I'm getting this employee from the repository, and then I don't know, it was I don't think it was probably closing a transaction, maybe causing an issue, but I don't know, it couldn't get the address. So when I would get over here to get to the address, it couldn't get the address for whatever reason. So I had to, and that's what I'm going to show now, how I fixed that, the lazy in it. So here's my employee entity, and because I had ManyToMany, I had to actually, as you can see how I did it here, fetch equals eager, and I used the JPA, Java Persistence API for that. So yeah, I used the fetch here. I actually did it for the address, and then because it was a ManyToMany, I actually still couldn't get to work getting the same exception. That's because I had to do it here as well. I had to do it for both of them because it's ManyToMany. So yeah, that's pretty much how I fixed that. I think I went over everything. This is just an entity, the address entity. Show my ManyToMany. So I said to fetch the eager here, and I fixed the lazy init exceptions. I also had to make sure that there was default 0 argument constructors, which didn't really make sense, but so I put it in, and it worked. So that was, again, once I fixed the lazy init problem, it would tell me there's no default constructor for the address. So I had to add the address. I had one here, but I had to add one also for the address, and then as you can see, that's when everything was working just fine. So yeah, so you're gonna probably need 0 argument constructors as well if you're running into, that's pretty much what I had to do to finally get everything working. And as you can see, the address here. Now, because it's a ManyToMany, and like I said, it's more, it's a ManyToMany, so what happens is Hibernate will make 4 tables. It will make a employee addresses table and an addresses employee table. So using the mapped by, it will create 3 tables, and it will map by, I guess I'll show the 3 tables if I have it, which I don't have it open actually, but maybe I can open it really quickly. It's taking a while, and here's my tables. Okay, so as you can see, it will I don't know why I have all these tables. I'll delete them and just run the application again, and I'll show you that it I don't know, hopefully it doesn't take too long. It will make 3. Refresh. Okay, refresh. So it makes the 3 like that I want. Now I'll show you how it will make 4 if you don't have this. If you don't tell it to map by. So I'll delete these again. It deletes it automatically for me. So yeah, actually, I'll just delete it, whatever. Yeah, that's why for testing stuff it deletes it automatically for me. Okay, I'll run this again, and it will make 4. Okay, so refresh that, and you can see 4 tables. So it has address, employee, and it has a table for employee address. I just want 3, and I prefer the employee to address here relationship, so that's why I have it on this one. And if I put it on the other one, it will keep one of these. So now, so if I put it here, so it will keep the employee address, which is the one I want to keep. If I put it, so if I went over to here and mapped by addresses, here somewhere, that's the constructors, setters, getters. Okay, I'm having trouble finding it for some reason. Right here. So yeah, here's the ManyToMany. So if I put it here, it will keep the it will make, that's the one that's making this address employee. So I'm going to delete this. Or, well, it's maps by this one. That's why I have it on the other one. I tell it to map by the addresses and employee, so you get the employee to addresses. Yeah, so I think that's gonna be it. That's everything. I showed everything. It's a very simple application, but I just wanted to go over the Hibernate Transaction Manager and the ManyToMany relationship that I have for my employee program. So thanks for watching.